So what we're looking at here is a winch launch of Lon Kelly on, what date was it, Lon? The 6th of January?
15th, I think.
15th of January. And Lon has declared a 300k flight, 3 turn point flight. So you've taken a launch and got a climb over the Teetotal Ridge there, Lon, and come back onto the Maggie. And in doing so, you've crossed over your start point that you had declared.
That's correct.
So you're coming onto the Robert Ridge and looking for the general house thermal around the car park area there, I take it.
Yeah, well, it started out over the speargrass. I kind of flew into the loop and into the lift, and then I moved over a little closer to the hill and got a little better climb there. And set off once I was above the ridge level, with the intent to only take the good climbs and just follow the ridge along up. I expected to get a climb there at Angeles, but you can see that really didn't pan out.
So the day was pretty much as we've shown on the screen here, which is a graphic, of course, but it was a blue day, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was absolutely blue, particularly this early in the afternoon. This is about 1:20 or 1:30.
So you went up the Travis Range to the high point like Mount Cupola.
Yeah.
And got high there and crossed over onto the Mahanga Range.
Yeah. And then I'm just working my way up the Mahanga Range looking for that good thermal. Because the Mahanga Range climbs fairly steeply, and I wanted to gain height while I could, but you can see a lot of these climbs are pretty iffy, and Jerry O'Neill had coached me to only stop in the good ones, and there wasn't a lot of sink between the thermals. As long as I stayed on the ridgeline, I lost very little height. So it's just waiting for the good thermals.
So you're heading off along the Spencers here, and you're 8,500 feet.
Yeah.
Coming up on Fairy Queen, going past Mount Una. And are you going off the end of the Spencers now? Yeah. Well past Fairy Queen. And yeah, there's often a climb there, I've found. Start of the Liberto Range.
Yeah.
And you've got a turn point ahead of you. How did you choose that turn point?
Well, it needed to be a certain distance away from Lake Station to work out for the 300K, and I picked a spot that had multiple gullies coming up together over a little spur, a little peak, and every time I was there was a thermal that allowed me to gain the height, whatever height I'd lost bombing down that Libretto Ridge. And pretty much, I think both times I was able to just, without having to stop, just get back into the Bullard drainage.
So I guess when in the Bullard drainage you feel a bit more comfortable about possible landouts and retrieves and so on.
Well, it's certainly more convenient. I mean, I was high enough over the divide there to have made Hamner pretty easily, or much less Glen Wise. So it was never out of glide of a known safe landable field, but certainly you'd prefer to land closer to home if someone's going to have to come get you.
So this flight is the first 300k flight you've ever done, and it is a declared badge flight as well. And you went, by going past Fairy Queen and out onto the Liberto Range, you're going to territory you've never been before.
Yeah.
And the whole flight was done in 3 hours. It was 300 k's, so that's 100 k's an hour average. That's a fairly sort of expert flight, Lon.
Well, it's good conditions for sure. Yeah.
And how have you got to this position in gliding where you can achieve these things?
Well, I've been flying every chance that I can. I don't think I've missed very many days, maybe one or two in the last 2.5 years, when the Nelson Club is flying. And I've taken advantage of cross-country courses at Omerima and Springfield, and been mentored by people who really knew what they were doing about getting about the sky, such as yourself and Chris Richards and Jerry O'Neill and Gavin Wells. And I spent 3 days in November with Milan at Kahu Soaring out of Omerima, ostensibly to get a cloud flying endorsement, but I learned an awful lot just flying around with him and his duo, and getting around the mountains out of Omerima. And then I most recently had 2 dual flights, one with Justin Wills and one with Mike Oakley at the Springfield cross-country course. And they, on both those flights, I asked them if we could head up from Springfield towards Lake Station so we could kind of link those 2 airspaces together. And while that libretto range isn't one of the ranges that we went up, I recognized what I was seeing down the ridge, and because I had been as far as Springs Junction twice with those guys, a little bit further to the west than this flight.
Yeah, no, congratulations, and it's quite an achievement, especially as we say, the older you are, it's not that easy to teach old dogs new tricks, but you've certainly learned a few. And you're heading back now off the Spencers, I think, and is that right? And,
yeah.
And back onto this Liberto range and back to your declared turn point. And these days you're allowed to have the same turn point twice. You used to have 10 Ks apart, but they've relinquished that rule, we believe. This flight, as we speak, hasn't actually been certified as a true. It hasn't been, whatever the word is, with Edward Dubernagis. We've sent the claim in, so we may yet be proven wrong, but we've read all the rules ourselves, and that's how we see it. So you've now done your last turn and you're heading home, and as we'll see on this flight, you don't stop once, you just barrel on like you've done it all before.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'd been over it twice already, and so now I'm going back once, twice. I've been over it 3 times, and now I'm going back the 4th time. So, pretty confident that what's going to happen is not going to be falling into a great amount of sink. And actually, I think on this flight, my straight glides averaged L over D of over 70. There's just a lot of lift along every ridge, and as long as I stayed over the ridge, I didn't go down hardly. So I was able to go back. I think I averaged nearly 80 knots, maybe a little more than 80 knots on the return trip, and I never stopped. Both trips north being more or less downhill, I didn't stop hardly at all.
Yeah, and of course this one you want to land, so it's a final glide situation. You use all the height you've got.
Yeah.
And that's what you did. And
so I pulled the brakes out.
Oh yeah.
And descended and landed. Landed kind of long, but what the heck? There we go. That's it.
Congratulations.
Thanks.